Eastern Standard Time. It's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. I am so blessed and honored to have Leslie Nydick with us today. If you don't know Leslie, this is even a luckier day for you. And we're going to be talking about legacy. These words of the day are really getting to resonate. And our goal is to enhance interaction, learn as much as we can, to help you as much as we can, because you're driving, this show. So based on that, chat's open. Feel free to jump in. Lately, we've been having more chats than we've been having more time. So we're going to get a little bit more focused on kind of going through those. With that said, I want to turn it over to Leslie, and Leslie can share a little bit about what's going on since you might have talked to her last, and more importantly, or as importantly, what legacy means to Leslie.
Thank you, Don. I really am so honored to be here with you. So, like Don said, I'm Leslie Nydick. I'm over in New York City, where I am now breathing in some much cleaner air than we were during the last few days. It was a little odd around here. So I'm very glad to be here. And as many know, I'm the conflict strategist. And I just want to push this where if you're stuck in conflict, I will get you unstuck. And it's really simple. Just send me a DM with whatever, very summarized what your issue is, and I'll point you in the direction of some tips. If you need more, you'll contact me more. But I love sharing through YouTube, LinkedIn, my blog, and why keep it to myself? Share it with you, things I've learned over the last few decades. But about legacy, when I first saw the word, it felt like a lot of pressure. And I really then thought about how legacy in my mind has transformed over the years, where I think when I was younger, I thought it was about stuff, like stuff that you create. That's a legacy. Build a building, write 10 books, build a company, even be an inventor. I tried to think of it as I do photography. So I'm like, okay, my photos like on a wall, that's my legacy. And it just never felt complete. And then I got a message from someone several years ago, a little more than several years ago. Uh, and he was someone I had worked with decades before, reached out to me on Facebook through one of those, before even Messenger. It was a message. And he said he wanted to thank me for my kindness. And he went on to describe it. And he said it completely changed the direction of his life. Wow. I want you to know, I had no idea, nor did I remember what he told me I did for him. Apparently, I tried to get him a permanent job. He was in a very specialized program, a temp work, and he told me all these things. And I'm like, I did that. But the part that stuck with me is not only did something I did that was kind and probably I thought was just like normal to do, impacted him, impacted now. Then he got married, he had a daughter, and I'm like, wow, he impacted me. Like that was his legacy, that he taught me what legacy is. It's not the things, it's the people we impact.
Yeah, and that. Well, you're so right, Leslie, because sometimes it's just a legacy that's not determined by age, right? If you meet one person today and they share something that turns out to be a keepsake, something that you bring forward, you look at, you think about, and it brings back something in you that has been missing for a while, or something in someone else who has been so important to you. That's why pictures of family and occasions, because if you close your eyes, you can almost be there again. And that takes you out of where you are with the people that you love the most, that loved you the most, the moments you can't go back physically to, but you can reach back in your mind. Kinga's here. Just want to share the people today. Thank you, Kinga. Had a great call. Kinga's going to get on the show. Cindy's here. Thank you so much. Stephen's here
Hi,
from
Cindy.
New York.
Hi,
And actually,
Stephen.
my son was in New York City for a night and was during that whole smoky thing. You know, he went to,
Oh,
on Broadway, he went to Aladdin. So that was his big
ooh.
thing. Kelly's here. Kelly's,
Hi,
you know,
Kelly.
Kelly, she's the anchor around here. She's responsible for a lot of the wonderful things that are happening now that took a lot of time and effort to build. And John is here. Paul's here. I haven't seen Paul in a couple of days. That's unusual. Hello,
Hi,
Don.
Paul.
Grateful to be here today to support and learn. The topic of legacy has inspired a new project I've been working on. Well, each one of us can create legacies for all of us. And if you share what's a legacy to you, it may be something that lights the fuse for a legacy for them, right? And that would be great. Hello, Paul and Kelly. Janice is
Hi.
here. Janice is a great gal. I
Yes.
tag her. So happy to have you. Baz has been here pretty much the last week and has brought a lot of value in his comments and his appearance. Here we go with Dennis. Dennis is here almost every day. Pictures
Hi,
worth
Dennis.
1,000 words, and your words are great to hear and to be here. Well, it looks like we almost caught up.
Ooh, and
Before
Sia's here.
Sia's here. Sia's great, and Sia has a show too that I would want. I don't have it. If you want to put in comments what it is, Sia, you're more than welcome. But you know, I advocate everybody learning from as many people as they can in the best ways they can, because it's a complement to your learning, not a competition between teachers. And you know,
Exactly.
everybody should see the best, and it doesn't mean it's an absolute. You may want to see
Exactly.
one show when you're in this mood. Maybe it's accessibility, availability, but we're such a small population relative to 900 million. You know, there's only 36,000 newsletters on LinkedIn as opposed to 900 million, and LinkedIn Lives are much rarer than newsletters. So we're a handful, and the best way to do is soften the market for each other to make LinkedIn Live a platform people appreciate and value, because the last factoid, it's 25 times more comments than an organic video, which is 4 times more comments than a text post. That's 120
Right.
times the power. You know, where do you get hundreds of people at the same time in real time, learning from each other and all through each other? So, anyways, it's incredible. I'm glad everybody's here to experience it. Leslie Nydick, I had a similar shift in my definition of legacy. The evidence of your legacy is how you make people feel when you're not physically present. And you know what's wrong with having a continuous legacy, right? That
Yes.
isn't finite. That didn't. Here's somebody's watch. You know, here's I hate to get into it because it takes time, but what was interesting, my mother passed. I found a diary of hers from 1943 when she was 18. And it was a whole year's worth of entries. And every day I'd read the entry for the day I was in. So it was like June 25th, I read June 25th. And it was so
Love
cool
it.
to see her words and now understand her as an 18-year-old. And it was a great diary, so it was all G-rated. But anyways, Leslie, what do you think about all these comments, and what little things that mean very little to some people can mean so much to you?
I think that this is part of like the legacy and the impact, like just these lovely comments. Thank you that we can meet on LinkedIn and feel this connection and this strength. I do think lives definitely strengthen the connection, not just the written word. Maybe, that can start a relationship, but it doesn't complete it. And just like Stephen said, how you make people feel. Again, it's a similar experience, but after my parents passed, um, different decades. After my mom passed and then after my dad passed, I felt, and I couldn't read them all. I got flooded with letters from friends and different relatives of my parents, and each would tell, the common point was that each would tell the story of how my mother or my father or both impacted them and did something kind, and that they wanted to thank me because they had never thanked my parents enough. And I said, you just did, because you're making the story live on. I would call each one and it created a new relationship. And it is back to that where I think it's okay. We don't always know our impact on other people, but just know it's there. And that's why when people say just be kind always, it's you don't know how your smile is impacting someone and changing their day. Uh, how saying hello to someone, opening the door for someone, paying it forward, like at a Starbucks where you buy someone's coffee, the person behind you. I love when you hear those stories of people doing that. And I think I noticed that the most in New York City because people will say, "Oh, New York, you know, it's hard. People are not nice there." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Walk around and smile, and you'd be amazed at the reactions you get from people and probably the impact I'm having on someone I'll never see again, or maybe I will."
Well, and that's so true. And while you're talking, I'm thinking of exactly what we're doing. Is this show is a legacy, right? That 50, 100 years
Yes.
from now, some relative, some friend of a friend can see you as you were, as you want to be. This is such a great gift you give yourself and the people around you. You show up for yourself while you're talking. You're hearing what you're saying just at the same time everybody else is, and sometimes you're impressed with it and surprised by it. You
I
know, and,
love that. Yeah.
and that's the joy of things, is finding value, finding love and joy in things people take for granted.
Yes.
People step over because they're focused on an issue from yesterday that's never going to change, or a fear from tomorrow that's never maybe going to be realized, instead of living their life in the moment they're in with the people they're in. And here's the key, is how do you live as pure a direction as you can? Because everybody's virtuous until temptation shows up, until opportunity. And, I think that if your values and your priority, and if you look at you're building your legacy, is that what you want included in that? If you're building a custom home, would you want something attached to it that's going to take away from the value? And so you have an obligation when you project anything to
Yeah.
keep it within the brand you want to maintain or polish. Because when they
Definitely.
see someone, they should know somebody in a way to say, here's what's going to happen when they come in, right? They're going to either disrupt and make everybody crazy, or they're going to come in and settle. And that's what me and Leslie were talking about prior to the show, is it's really what you do that you want to be your legacy,
Yes.
not what you sold, not what you pitched, not what you did to get what you needed to get. But when someone says you're safe, this is your opportunity to share what you really want people to know you have to share, but also your shareability index. So anyways, well, I'll turn it right back to Leslie, but I got to hit these. They're just flying. I forgot
Yes.
where I stopped. I'll just go for the meteor ones, even though Raphael, I haven't ever seen you. If you're a new person,
And
thank you so
and
much.
definitely Cynthia, talking about the love letters between her parents that she
Well,
found.
what is that? Let me see.
Um,
Or you
she
can.
found love letters written between her parents when they were younger. I can't see the whole message. Cynthia Nordstrom. Thank you for sharing that, because it reminded me of what earlier, Don, you said something about like looking at a photo and you can remember how you felt with that family member or whatever. I was lucky to find not necessarily love letters, but my mother saved every letter I had and card that I had ever written to her, as well as from other people. I still haven't gone through it all because it's like emotionally exhausting to read all of this. But the best part is I have the cards and letters she mailed to me. and I can match up and kind of remember, like, especially during those early teen years when there was a little tension between mother and daughter, um, to see, but like I could read the love and I'm like, oh wow, good. Because at first I was remembering more the negative, and I'm like, wow, it really comes through that we knew that we loved each other. And it was just, it's very touching to have those letters. And those are things, but then it brings the feelings back that I can then pass on to other people.
Yeah,
And I think that's the legacy.
well, that's so perfect in so many ways, because I also look at it now as take what you just said and what people think, and add a little measure of trust into what you didn't know about that person, because then you find out later they really did care more about what it was than you thought they did. What was interesting is, going through my mother's stuff, I saw a scrapbook she put together from everything I sent her, because I'd get an interview or a video and I'd send it to her. And, she was always down in Florida in the winter. So she'd have all her friends. And, that would be a big activity, is whose kids are coming down, or grandkids or
Yes.
whatever. And you didn't realize little things you sent for the moment that you thought would stay in the moment ended up being a collection. Then I'm sure she probably sat down and shared or looked at or at least pasted when it came through. So, it's funny how everything ripples. And why not
Yes.
ripple it through the people who you want to remember you for something special for them, right? So maybe it's selfishly unselfish when you're doing something just to see the joy and hopefully the return, which is thank you, a little bit of gratitude, maybe a reciprocal thing. And why not start layering on in those directions with those people now, instead of getting caught up in the crowd with all these new people that have yet to show themselves? Leslie Flowers. So we got the Leslie contingent today. For me, this is about being kind. The kinder you are to yourself, the kinder you can be to others, and the kinder your legacy will start to be included. Because when you talk about legacy, it's like kind, thoughtful. You start running down the list of 10 top attributes of this person who was so important to you, or maybe didn't even know how important it was to you, but you knew it for yourself. And that's all that's really important. Paul says, hello. Okay, a lot of hellos. Let me see. Here's a comment. Even one transformed individual can start a legacy. And that's so true,
Yes.
John, because
Absolutely.
what I've been promoting so much is the vision that peer-to-peer support could win the day for this world, because we are right next to someone. We can give access and support very easily in a timely fashion. And a show like this demonstrates that. So by sharing what's good for you to people who are like you, that's what you should
Yes.
use LinkedIn for, is like, what's the most valuable share you can have? And sometimes people think, well, if I didn't create it, why would I share somebody else's? But you got a community that needs to be fed. If you don't have the ability, find something you really enjoyed and say, and you know what it shows? Unselfishness.
Yes.
When you promote something, you're not taking away from yourself. You're just opening people's eyes to something maybe before them. Leslie?
Um, it just really stands out. You said something about taking care of yourself, and it just reminded me of part of our conversation before the show started, that to be kind and generous to others, we do have to do that to ourselves too, or we're just giving and we're draining. Um, so like a vacation we were talking about, and I like turned everything off, and I knew I'd feel recharged. I just didn't know how good it would feel, and realizing I need to do better with inserting it into every day, because you can't just keep going and draining. You have to recharge yourself as well. And LinkedIn, yesterday was it yesterday or the day before? I got to meet someone in person I had met on LinkedIn. And it was just, maybe it helped her, but it like recharged me because it just is that reminder of how real and authentic our connections are in LinkedIn when you feel it in person, exactly what we were feeling on LinkedIn.
Yeah, now I think that speaks to family, and that's why we always relate to that. It relates to community, I mean, and it gives you the ability to
Yep.
be a solo act, a duo, a trio, a quartet, whatever you want to build here. It's kind of like Legos,
Yes.
it is who are the people you trust the most? Who are the people that you can depend on the most? And sometimes people you trust are not accessible or not, so it's like model kind of if this is a marketplace and this is a place where you can complete yourself with people who are stronger in areas you're not, and collectively you can make each other whole by sharing what you both have an overabundance of. And it's making the
Yes.
connection, but also making the completion of the connection. And that's where it's like, okay, now that everybody knows everybody, what do we want to do together? What do we want to do
Yeah.
individually? It's like, okay, we got the license to drive. Who wants to start up a car and see if it moves? And I think that's why
Yes.
so many people have been waiting for things that when it arrives, they forget it's even there.
Or what they thought they wanted and their legacy is not what they wanted. And again, I think it goes back to, I think it's the impact we have with people in our relationships. But in this world of media where like a viral post or headlines and that, having more viral posts, what is that? Like having a big crowd around me? That's pretty lonely. A lot of people doesn't make me fulfilled. It's this peer, like you said, peer to peer. It's how we're impacting each other one to one. We can grow that. But if it's all just this crowd of, oh, yay, a million people like what I had to say. Okay, now maybe I am impacting them, but now I'm disconnected.
Yeah, and you create your own shallowness by
Yeah,
sometimes going too wide instead of too deep. And until you've had, it's like everybody says money's the answer until they actually have some. And then they find out, no, it isn't the answer you thought it was. And, I've had posts go to 150, 200,000 views and go viral. But you know what? The next day it went back to where
nothing.
it was, and all the people, you know,
Exactly.
I'm a experienced poller. So I do a poll every day on LinkedIn. And I know what the results will be because I recycle them every week. It's the same 7 polls a week apart. I don't even remember what they were a week ago. So the point is I know if I want a lot of broad response, I'll say something like, how many connections do you have? Or do you want a connection?
Right.
Because everybody says, sure, I want a connection. It's easy to answer yes, no. But if I want a specific answer, I will make a specific question like, hey, I'm doing a new work group. Is anybody interested? You only get 10, but that's the
Right.
10 that have filtered itself out. And what I
Yes.
found about LinkedIn, it's a distillation process. So you expand and compress, expand and compress. It's like a fishing net, right? You're
Yep.
pulling the net every day, and some stuff's what you wanted, and stuff you got to sort. It's the same thing on LinkedIn. And here's what I learned from my retail career is if you only have so many feet in a store, it can only house so many products. So if a new product comes in, an old product has to leave, or you're going to have a lot of stuff that no one can see and get through. And it's the same thing here is you collect stuff, you sort through it, you keep some, that's what keeps it living and breathing. Is more is coming through, is more is coming out that doesn't work. And the thing that's really difficult is because relationships happen so fast and can end so quick, people don't complete them. They let them sit. Or instead of saying, no, I'm not going to do that, well, I can do some of that too. It's so weird because people use LinkedIn to fill their cups, but they don't always have enough cups out there every day. I've never seen somebody
Exactly.
who says I'm working LinkedIn full time. I'm putting about 90 minutes a day in, and I'm thinking if you were working a job, you'd be working 8 to 5 at least, maybe a break for lunch. Can you imagine
Sure.
working 8 hours every day on LinkedIn like someone works for their company? Never happened, right? But if they did, and every day they know they have an ability not only to create legacy, but opportunity through that legacy. If anybody reaches out and says, hey, I was thinking about you, I'd love to have a call, or I got an idea, we should do something together. If you
Sure.
get 5 of those today, you'll get one acceptance, or at least you'll know everybody's limit to
Yes.
collaboration and cooperation. Then you can put them in that pile. There's a saying, some will, some won't, so what? And that's just the way sorting works. You let it work.
Yes.
Olu's here today. Olu's always got some strong comments, always full of love and family. No doubt I'd be happy to be among you guys again. Never any doubt about that. Blessings to you all. Cindy's been very prolific this week. Paul's here with a meaty comment. I find it so interesting how we underestimate how much we are capable of. I remember writing my eulogy when I was a teenager, and in 5 years, I did everything I wanted to. I think people play too small with their legacy. They don't know how large their legacy can be because they've always.
Because
Go ahead, Leslie, please.
I was going to say, because I think you get influenced by media and what goes on, that your legacy needs to be like, oh, a headline, a movie, like something that everyone goes and sees. And that's not that's not the legacy. That could be very satisfying to have some great headline. Oh, I'm the top whatever I am. Oh, my photograph was on the wall in the museum. That's great. It may impact people, but I just think ultimately the legacy is how you've either helped people grow, help people feel good, help people feel like they belong or they matter. Um, and r- and it's coming from someone who is a collector of stuff. And I find it very difficult to let go of certain things because items, and it takes moving from a much larger apartment to a small apartment to realize like what's really important. And although there are times where I'm like, where's that thing? Oh yeah, I had to give that one away. But you don't need all those things because ultimately they're ending up in a storage room. And what is that? That's not living, because that's what someone once said to me. You want to go live in your storage room? Have fun. You'll be by yourself, live with all your memories, but you need those memories to change what you're doing in your future. And I think that's where I changed. It was much more about the feelings those memories bring me and acting on that, and not just sitting there with my memento and just kind of hugging, loving it.
Yeah, that's a good point because now I think I had that opportunity to keep getting bigger and bigger houses. And when you get bigger and bigger houses, you got more space. So anything you brought from
Yes.
the last house just goes in the corner. But when you finally minimize, and what I found is carrying so many generations of stuff with us and realizing that was their legacy stuff, it was never mine. Right? It
Yes.
might have been so your grandparents, and they must have loved it. But I say to myself, would I ever buy something like this right now if I didn't know where it came from or who touched it? And the answer is no. And it's like they wouldn't want me to have stuff that doesn't have purpose for me or value. You
Right.
know, they would be like, get rid of it, give it to somebody, do something, unclutter.
Yes.
So what's one's legacy doesn't have to continue through someone else, and that's good or bad. Some people have a
Yeah.
legacy of abuse and awful situations
Sure.
that they took with them, and that's what someone left them. But here's the real test, I think, of legacy, and it's happened to me a few times, is you're presented with situations that are so exciting and so valuable, and they're typically family situations. But then everybody in the family looks at you deciding, what are you going to do? And you can see in their eyes, are you going to keep with what you've always said and taught us? Or are you going to? And every time I turned down the deal because I'd have to look at everybody the next day knowing I was living a lie in a sense,
Yes.
and to me, that wasn't worth spending all that time building trust and whatever with it. And trust is something so hard to gain and so quick and
Yeah.
easy to lose,
Yes.
especially with the people that care and you care the most about. And I think that's what the idea of legacy is, continually to evolve and have your legacy improve. And now what I'm starting to realize, it's how you touch people, not how you teach people.
Yes.
Nobody wants to learn, here's the lesson you should never forget and you should always take with you. I mean, that's fine and good. But
Yes.
if someone did something that you'll never forget, an act of kindness, an
Yep.
act of supreme generosity that even you don't understand how they could have made that sacrifice for you, or done something, and you honor them by honoring them in thought, in sharing. I mean, a couple stories we told today brought people back to life in
Yep.
front of people that would have never known them. And now that story, because I was just talking to my wife, Ann, the other day, and I said, when someone talks about their grandmother, everybody thinks of their grandmother at the time, right? If someone said, my grandma was so kind and we played cards and she always had baked goods for me and it was just fun to be with her, everybody's thinking, well, my grandmother baked stuff too for me and I had a great this. And can't you see how mindset and attitude can change? Again, by having a single word, that's all we do, and share it. And all of a sudden, that word attaches to feelings, to events, to experiences. But also, you want to dig through more of them and say, hey, I want to get charged up a little bit more. And sometimes that's where people go and they read a book, to have some time for reflection or whatever. But if you look at a photo long enough, it almost comes to life.
Oh,
We'll see the animation that was there, the people. So I'll turn it right back to you, but let's see some more comments. The world is abundant. There are so many ways to give that are easy, and sometimes we don't look at ourselves and think that is something someone could take as my legacy. So true.
wow.
I mean, so many people,
Yes.
they plan their lunches and dinner, and it'd be like, hey, I don't have a vegetable. Something's wrong here, or I should have ate some fruit today. And so it's like, how do you build your menu for each day, right? How do you include things of gratitude or appreciation? And I think that makes for a more fulfilling day. Be you, do you, for you, for absolutely. When you're on an airplane, they always say when the mask comes down, put it over yourself first, so now you can help other people. Paul, something I've been thinking about lately is that on the, I guess, tombstone, I always remember myself that I have as much time as left as anyone else. Waiting is nothing but a waste of time. Well, nothing happens until you do something. The magic of master.
Exactly.
Leslie's the Think and Grow Rich expert on the panel. I purchased a binocular for my son. He said, Dad, I have to keep it safe as it's a family legacy. Yeah,
So that,
kids are fun. Go ahead, Leslie.
you know what I'm remembering? There was a time when we were talking about, my mother always told the story of how she got the wedding china, like her sister traveled to Europe to bring it back because they couldn't find it in the United States. I don't know what was so special about this pattern. And of course, they only got pulled out, for certain holidays. So when my mother passed, it all became mine. So I said in front of I needed new dishes. So I said in front of my brother and father, I'm just going to use the wedding china, mom's wedding china. Oh my God. There were differences of opinion where it was like, I said, what is it, going in the Nydick Museum? Like I have to hold it in a storage room forever. I'm not allowed to use it. I'm just those mementos. I've like now that I had this, I still have a storage room of stuff, but I've started to like bring them back to life using them. And that's part of the legacy because then I remember the stories like, oh, do you remember this whole story about mom and the china? And it reminds me of, and I'm a photo collector, not only taking my own photographs, but I have all the family photos back to when cameras were first invented. And the stories that I have to make up because I don't know the stories. Uh, there was a batch of photos that I found from Thanksgiving 1920 or 21 or something in that early 20s. And I think I've referred the story to some of my cousins, and they're like, it's probably true. I said, they were dressed up as if they were going to a wedding. So I'm like, who got married on Thanksgiving? No one. I've checked all the records. None of the, there were no living relatives at that time that got married. And then I realized I looked up that there had recently been that Spanish flu, which I think was 1918. So whatever year it was with the Thanksgiving, 2 or 3 years later, I'm like, you know what? I think they were finally getting out and they decided to just celebrate and these formal photos, a hired photographer with the name on the back from Brooklyn. Uh, it's just that so there is part of that, that the things can also be part of legacy, but in the end it's the stories and the people and what the relationships were.
Well, and I think that really builds more foundation for people because they have more of a root to things. They can go back 100 years and see. When I saw my grandmother when she was 18, I never looked at my grandmother as 18. I always thought she was
Yes.
born, my grandmother looking the way she did. And, you find out that all you're doing is repeating patterns at a certain point
Yes.
and some of the patterns you can't wait to repeat, and that's where tradition comes in, right? Is like, hey,
Yes.
why do we do this? I don't know, but it's always been done and we just keep doing it, and it doesn't really matter where it started. It's what it does for everybody. And I think, what do you bring not only towards your legacy of the future, but what are you trying to evolve so you can improve your legacy? The gift
Yes.
you give to yourself, and then the gift that continues to give after you're gone. And I think by incorporating the past in a good way, most people take the worst of their past and keep carrying around with them, and you give them free space in their mind. That's usually around embarrassment or disappointment or humiliation, when they've got just as many or more of those wonderful stories. And the idea is, why don't you change the channel? Get some romance, get some comedy, get some fun from the past, because in a way, everybody gave up whatever they had when they left. It's kind of like a relay race where your goal is to get the baton to the next person and give them a chance to run their race. Is how did you honor them with all the gifts they left you? If they were here, would they be proud of you? Would they support you? And you can bring them back. They can't come back, but you can bring them back in your mind. Leslie,
Absolutely.
I went wide until I got older, was full of information. I went deep. At a certain point, you got to pick your spot and you got to work it. It's
Yes.
like a gold mining. You got to have your area and then you got to work it.
I
Nicole's,
like
go ahead.
I like thinking of it as like I do have to, I'm living in the present for today. I'm not, I think about the future, but I can't like worry about it. Today is today. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But the past, I like kind of thinking of it as I'm weaving it in, whether it's a story I tell that will keep on getting passed on, maybe a story here. There's a story I like telling in my family where um, mo- I again, it's back to my collector stuff. I collect the birth certificates, the death certificates, and the wedding certificates. But it's weaved together some stories. And there was one story with my grandma that finally came to light because I didn't know. She was ill at the time, and it was towards the end, and she yells, you go tell that nurse, they got to show me more respect. I am a 94-year-old lady. And I looked at her and I go, but you're not 94, you're 90. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I was born in 1900. I'm like, okay. And I never thought of it again. I was a teenager at the time. Years later, I'm like, oh my God, grandma was really 94. Did anybody know this? Her real name, her maiden name is not her maiden name. And it had to do with, you know, when she came to the United States and how they came and they had to use different names. So the person we thought she wasn't. Totally different name, different family. Um, and I'm still kind of investigating it to figure all the details out. But it's, you know, something to pass on. It's just history does matter. We can't just forget it. It's not just about today. So that's the legacy, the stories about people.
Well, you know, it's also the fun that one can have by embracing it. But also, I know in the past, everybody thought something and included that in their way they thought about somebody, and then they found out exactly opposite. Is that person never
Yes.
did that? You know, sometimes, well, he played professional football for 1 year for some team, and that never happened. He maybe played high school, but it got embellished. You know, so but
Yes.
it doesn't matter, you know, because what you're doing is recreating something that's been done. And you
Yes.
know, then, you know, I always believe everything is what it is, and then it's whatever you want to add to it for as long as you want to add to it, right? If
Yep.
something, you break a glass yesterday, there's no way it's coming back like it was. And you could worry about it and think who it came from, what's its worth, and all of a sudden, nothing changes. So the key is you have the right to be the curator of what goes
Yes.
into your Smithsonian Institute. And you know what I've done? All around my house, I have things that wherever I look, it'll remind me of something or someone. Like my mother was just the best cook ever. And I always kept her little porcelain salt and pepper shakers, you know, and they're probably 90 years old by now. And I don't even use them. They're just there,
Right.
right? But when I look at it, I think about her
Yes.
and her cooking. And if it's just for 5 seconds and 5 seconds here, 5 seconds, you don't have to take a shower in it every day.
Yes.
You know, you just like flowers. Sometimes when you see them, sometimes when you smell them, and that's all you need. And I think if you build a beautiful life around the best of what you've been able to achieve, and then borrow the clothes of your ancestors to finish you off, you
Yes.
know, I mean, we talk about legacy and it's usually family, but let's talk about what everybody else wants to talk about. Paul says, I've seen so many people lately complain about representation. And I asked them, why don't you be the representation? I had a post go viral last week that inspired my newest project. I realized I want to redefine what's possible for people. And, you know, that's the beauty is try on new things. Try on another fashion that you're not accustomed to. See how it feels. See
Yes.
how it looks. You know, the idea of evolution is trying change and let
Yes.
change show itself to be the result. Because if you look at sports, if the players are doing their job on the field, the score takes care of itself. Looking at the scoreboard when you're playing is a distraction and might impact us ultimately the score. As Sheaf says, the idea is not live forever, but to create something at will. Andy Warhol. Well, I think the thing is to be proud of yourself for who you are, for what you've done, and for what you want to do, which means that
Yes.
you're okay with wherever you are because you're a work in progress. And here's the beauty of it if someone can attach 5 or 6 of their legacies to help you out, you know, because, you know, there's a saying, you know, facts tell, stories sell. No one wants to hear your numbers. They want to hear your story because it's your story. It's not their story. When you start talking about someone's story, there's going to be some defensiveness. maybe some inaccuracy. People spend 8 hours a day every day on Facebook. Yeah, and
Ugh,
what's the legacy they're going to have? Somebody else's.
yeah.
You cast,
No,
catch, but an escape,
what
or
is
you
it?
throw them back. It's not, if it's not what you're fishing for. You know what? People
Great point.
should give people the grace to leave them when it's time to leave, and people should leave
Yes,
people when it's time to leave, because that's why it's time to leave. If someone,
yes,
the train's here and you got to get on it, well, I'll wait. Well, you're going to miss the train, and what's that going to do for anybody? And,
yeah,
if you have left the right legacy, then you shouldn't worry about, do I have another obligation? Because you're always going to have another obligation and a reason not to move on,
sure.
and you're letting them move on. And John says, yep, legacy zombie, 8 hours on LinkedIn. Wow. Well, they say if you got a big enough why, you figure out the how to, and I
Yes.
think I think that's important. Rita says, and Rita's just the greatest. Good morning, Rita and Eugene. I think Rita's going to run for mayor of Eugene, because she puts out Eugene every time, makes people want to go there. Good evening from a very hot Antwerp in Belgium, Rashida. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Dean was on the show a couple weeks ago. Great guy. Really get to know him. He can talk about legacy. I watched a documentary called The Social Dilemma, explain why my
Ooh,
generation is the way it is. Sounds like a good show. Maybe everybody should pick up.
definitely.
Oh, Rita saw it. Excellent. Double verification. Milestones don't have to be a mile long. So true.
Oh, I
And
love that.
is, a food for thought is legacy always perceived as positive. We have a negative perspective. Curious. Well, that's the kind of stuff I'd leave in the chest and take out something more. But it depends on how you want to relate to it. You know,
Yes,
because it is the past. It's typically someone else's. So one shouldn't have judgment, because no one knows the situations people were in
exactly.
at the time, what their mindset was, how much that hurt them as well as maybe other people. Nicole said, that's my goal by next summer. And Nicole's a great author. I will work for myself from my bed,
Absolutely.
doing content creation. This will all happen because of LinkedIn too.
Oh,
I've started a business because of LinkedIn. I will sign my third client Monday. Well, congratulations. I mean, Nicole is just a,
yay.
a
She's
legacy,
a
a
lovely.
inspiration for other people just in a short period of time, to change one's whole future and opportunity in front
Yes.
of oneself, is so inspiring. And that's the key, is if Nicole can do it, you can do it. I
Yeah.
can do it. And if you can't, maybe we together can help each other get it done. As long as
You,
people are
s-
talking, there's still hope. What are your views on minimalism? What's your thoughts on minimalism, Leslie?
does he want me to get rid of all my stuff? Then I'm against it. Um, Although I've minimized, I will never be a minimalist. So I think I have similar experiences like Don you described. Like there's something you see, and for a moment you're like visiting with that person in your thoughts. And I love doing that, whether it's through photos, whether it's through a thing. Um, I've been able to create it in a place that I go to at the beach where I wouldn't have it if it wasn't for some material legacies that someone left behind, and just being there, but I'm living in the present. So I think there's a combination of I'll never be, I feel like I already live in a tiny home compared to most people. And but some people are like, can you go even more tiny? I go, oh, I don't want to. I've got my stuff. I need stuff. So I'm only going to go minimalist to a point, because it's like a storybook I'm reading, the things that I have and the photos, and I enjoy the stories and bringing them present. And like you said, maybe they change a little bit because I don't know all the circumstances. I don't have people to confirm or deny my factual stories. So they're just stories, but they're something to enjoy, and they warm my heart. So they're having like an impact on me. And that's what we're here for, to find the positive in the negative and appreciate all the positives. And it's mindset, like you said.
Yeah, and it's what do you do for yourself to make yourself as happy as you can while you're waiting for something or something else, someone else to come along. And I think the other key, and I want to welcome Rocky here. Raquel's just the greatest. I'm so honored every time she honors us with her insights and her presence. But I think it's about reinvention, which was a word the other day, is constantly trying on new things. But I did become a minimalist. It got to the point where I decided, especially after downsizing, that the more stuff I had, the more stuff had me. So it took me to take care of an extra car or two. It took me to deal with all the stuff. And then, I opened up boxes that weren't open for 40 years. And if they were gone, I would have never known what was in them. And it said to me, if I don't even have an hour in 40 years to open a box, what do I need this for? And where do I want to keep this? And, I think you honor the things that mean the most to you by not getting distracted by the things that don't mean anything to you. And some people
Sure.
are strict and say, I can't throw this out. This has been in the family.
Yes.
So I just can't do it. And I look at it like, if you're not using it, could someone else use it and benefit? And
Yes.
what was that meant for? When they bought it, it was meant to be used, not to be stored for 100 years. And, to your point, we had so much sterling silver and China and all this stuff. And it was just beautiful stuff. But no one uses China anymore. No one sets a table
I
with
do.
sterling, but that's rare. So
Yeah.
when it came time to give it away, nobody even wanted it. And I remember taking such good care of it. And finally, I called this thrift organization, and they picked up this box full of China. He just heaved it. You hear everything crunching. And I'm thinking, why did I could have thrown it in the garbage if that's what I was going to do. So Raquel's here. Let's go through these lovely.
Hi, Raquel.
Dean is
The
here.
minimalist, the one thing I want to point out, it's just like any word. How you define minimalist is probably different than my minimalist. But one way I determine if I should keep something or not, if I'm going to be buried in organizing it or valuing it, like the silver, then it's not adding it, or there's no story behind it. Then I really can separate myself from it. And I usually leave it in a box for a bit. And if I haven't touched it, it's like, okay, that's time to give that away or give it to someone who will use it. It's all perception and mindset. And chances are what you call downsizing is very different than my downsizing, because we've all lived it, anyone in New York, Manhattan knows most of us are living in a much smaller space than you would call small. Your small is much larger than my small.
Yeah, and I think also minimalism has to do with alignment with where you are. Like at a certain point, you look at clothes and say, "I'll never wear this."
Right.
It's time to move it out of here because people need some room. And what I found, if I'm not going to use something, they had a theory, not a theory, but people had 100 channels on their TV and they flip through it. They'd always come back to 5.
Yes.
They'd surf and then they come back to 5. Well, your closet, and my wife is completely
It's the
different.
same.
She's got 90% of the closet space, and I've got a little portion. But I only keep what I wear. And if I decide I'm never going to really wear this, or this is always going to come in second to this, then it's time to give it and let someone else wear it. And that's the legacy you build before you go. My mother always had a philosophy. She wanted to see her money go to people and see what it did for them while she had it, and that's how she lived, that she could experience what her benefit could be to people and know it happened the way she wanted to those people. Because I was always a big fan. I said, you work so hard and everything you got, you earned, and you should spend. You should enjoy it. I don't want, anything. And, and that made a big difference because she would be more generous with the goal that eventually this is all going to disappear, but I'm going to have fun giving it, watching it, and modeling that to give things when you
Yes.
can and when you have them. And that's another thing about legacy. When we went through all our stuff, I said to myself, the kids are going to be so happy that they don't have to do it. We
That's
didn't leave them with a pile of stuff and then they got to go. It's just a mess. So, anyways, here we go with Nicole. Thank you. Let's see these comments. This is a great show. We're getting tremendous interaction. Connecting will make the student more receptive. What's the difference? You try this, you look at this. What do you got to lose? AK's here. I had a great call with AK. She's up in Eastern Oregon and she's a horse person. Actually calls herself a buckaroo. And she's a great lady. I was actually talking with Rita yesterday, who's in Oregon, and that would be a great show to connect those two with. Petra's here, who goes by Ashley. Petra's just a wonderful person, has an unbelievable story. Anjan, difficult to erase legacy from memory, no physical monuments yet. Oh, yeah, I danced a lot. Rita says, use the wedding china. Why wait? Well, yeah, people are worried if
exactly.
the gold is going to come off. Nothing's coming off if you don't use it. It's a plate. Eat off of it. That's the key. And you would probably be honoring.
It's over 100. I think it's. Oh, now it's 75 years old. Like, what am I gonna do with it? Like I said, if there's no Nydick Museum, you don't need it, or you only need one piece of it, one setting. So, and I think someone wrote in there, "What do you do with the broken china?" Nothing. You throw it out.
Yeah,
I've got plenty more that back then they had servings of. I don't know. I think I started with servings of 18. So I have much more to go before I break it all.
Well, plus, believe me, when they were using it 100 years ago, it was breaking them too. Something fell off the table. Susanna's here. Thank you so much for coming, Susanna. It's great to see you.
Susanna.
We got so many wonderful people here. Susanna, Dean, Nicole. This is a community of sharing a legacy together while we're building a legacy individually. And we can learn from each other. And I think that's the best legacy is, hey, I just saw what Leslie said. I'm going to apply that today. Or here's a new takeaway. Do more with the people and the legacies you already have in front of you. I love what you said, Don, about getting caught up in the vanity metrics. I remember last year when I had an article featured in 8 global businesses, finance, and news magazines. After the initial launch, I stopped caring. It changed my perspective because, and there's a novelty to flash in the pan things.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, so it's enjoyable. You hit a lottery ticket or something, but that's not a sustainable way. Here's Leslie. It is irreplaceable. If I do find a piece, the price is outrageous. Yeah, China. I've had it. What you weave into lives is what you leave behind. It's so true. Everything you say or do takes someone or yourself further towards your goal or away from it. And sometimes you have too much pride in who you have been and what you've done to want to sacrifice it, for things that aren't very worthwhile. Leslie said, I walk in eggshells when I use the china. That someone will break a gosh, I would get a vault. Great memories for the H grandma china. Hey, Susanna, here's one. I remember how children wanted my mom's apple crisp recipe after she had passed, or wanted to learn her noodle recipe when unable to make them anymore. Many things can become a legacy. It's so great, Linda, because a lot of my best loved family were so very simple and practical in what they did that it was really the utility of things that people put the value on, not the shininess or the gems or anything. My grandma was always impressed with anything new. What does it do? Yes. How does it work? And that kind of builds the flame in yourself if you have parents or grandparents who love to learn, love to share, love to be the person that helps you become the person you became. So the legacy,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even know it's happening when you're saying things that somebody else said that you liked
Yes.
as a kid and now you adopted it. Well, they continue to live on their legacy through their stories or jokes. My 30-year-old niece has been texting me about the origination of her family, uncle of father's side with Leon Trotsky, both families from Russia and Poland. And that's where I think you get all this, 23 and Me or whatever it is, where people do their heredity test and their DNA, and they find out they're related to all these people, and that's a legacy. Or they found out they had a cousin here they never even knew about, or someone showed up in the family
Sure.
no one ever talked about. And that's the beauty of living, is every day is a curiosity that you can continue to build the flame for. Hello. Okay. So we're coming to top hour. We got a few more minutes ago this weekend. My mother left me sterling silver spoons were engraved with scenes and words from Massachusetts. I tried to submit them to the Museum of Fine Arts. They didn't accept, but it would be wonderful to show them to the world and not keep them. Well, that's important. Sharing, showing. Good morning. Anjan says, topic is nostalgic for Leslie Adele and us. Smile, remember. And, that's so great to take an hour and all of a sudden fill people's hearts, build people's smiles, make people a little
Definitely.
bit more optimistic. And I guarantee you, everyone in this group will think of something that they kept from somebody, and maybe pay it a little bit more attention today. My ex
Or
uncle.
use it and enjoy it and tell a story.
Yeah, and
Um,
share
isn't
your
that?
story because they will continue the legacy. Okay, here's one from Susanna. My passed on treasures from family include my grandpa's Bible. Mom's dad was a Lutheran pastor, and my grandma's recipes, and the memories of the time I got to bake some with grandma and mom. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
Because if you can take this comment and bring it out during any time you're having a challenge during the day, this alone may center you a little bit more, may give you a little bit support. Value is subjective. For some, it's material. For some, it's memories. And for some, it's both. There's no
Yeah. I
competition,
have
right?
the most valuable treasure I have from my parents. I found after my dad passed. It's a folder, and it's within a folder. It was the Leslie folder that had all my achievements, copies of diplomas, articles, whatever it was. But within that, there was another folder that said advice. And it turns out my father collected any note or like little scratch pad thing my mother wrote down as like a quote or a memory or advice. He wrote like a full 10-page letter that for me to find after he passed. So when you say when I'm struggling, I just go in that folder and I just, arbitrarily pick one out. And there's always something to bring their voice back. So their legacy continues, their voice is heard. And then I try to share that wisdom they're sharing with me with other people with my little flavor. I I turn it into something that's coming from me. But that is legacy, to continue to keep on learning, lifelong learning, evolving, and not getting buried in the past, but honoring the past and enjoying it and laughing about it or smiling. So use the china, use the silver, or sell it and make some money off of it and go do something special. Like the experiences is what we're going to remember more than that little item on the shelf.
Yeah, that's so true. And here's a comment from Stephen. Legacies take time and bravery to materialize. Some spring up immediately. Mine might take longer, but I'm okay with it. I'm looking to put down deeper roots to bear greater fruits. Well said. And I think the other thing that one learns from legacy is that when I looked at things that were handed down, and I thought to myself, they've already been used. People have already
Mhm.
gotten the benefit. You would never think about the meal you ate a week ago and think, boy, I should have kept what I didn't eat. But if you bought something, you wore it a lot, enjoyed it a lot, it paid itself already. You don't have to go back to it. And if nothing else, if it's not this, it's that, right? Which means if you didn't have this, you'd be buying something, wearing something new, trying something else. I always say, whatever you did yesterday, you can continue tomorrow. Why not take a day off and do something that you never would do? You
Yes.
can always undo it, especially if it's well intended. Blows my mind how people spend so much money on these luxury designer brands that will say investing in themselves is too much. I think I can't believe what people spend money on that no one even knows it's worth what it is, right? I mean, and anyways, that's a whole new word, a whole new topic.
It is like to each his own. We all value things differently and what we want to spend our time or money on.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Legacy is a lot purer when you don't add judgment to it or commentary. If something is what it is without saying it's bad or good, makes it a lot easier to engage. Uh, yes, I'm also remember my grandmother's Hummels I was supposed to have, but didn't because my mom sold them. Uh, it's kind of funny how you also get things you bought people and they come back to you. I remember I bought this for
Yes.
someone's anniversary. They had it in their china closet, and now I have it back again. Such a great point. If you're not using it, it can someone else. Talk to Melissa. Melissa's a great gal. She'd be a great co-host with Leslie one day. Victoria's here. Great to see you. Stephen. Hi, Melissa. Nice to see you. Yeah, Melissa's great, great gal. I'd reach out to everybody on the right-hand side where the columns are and get to see their profiles, make some connections.
And
Linda,
that's what I wanted to say. Like, I know, but you do it all the time. I will absolutely be diving into the comments and making sure I'm interacting with everyone because I missed some of them. And I definitely have to get the name of that documentary that Paul recommended. I look forward to it.
well, and here's the beauty of it is one can use this opportunity to start building legacy with and for people. I know maybe probably because of people talking of my dad being a good man, as if he said what he meant and would help anyone he could. He had so many share stories of that when people came to help to take out our crops when dad was so sick. And those are the things that are meaningful, that have meaning attached to it. Sometimes you get a gift and the gift looks like nothing, but the way it was given, how it was given, where it was given. And some people were lucky to give anything. That's why a lot of people would bake something. That's all they could afford.
Yes,
Here's a pound,
exactly.
and you knew how valuable that was and how important it was for that person to provide. And that's why giving people their voice and letting them be seen is so important,
Yes.
because it shows people are worthwhile, and the things you have I have value. Everyone values work for them. There is no right or wrong way about using China other than the person that owns it. You're right. It's yours to do as you wish. You know, complete control over your China. Don't let it ever intimidate you and back you into a corner. Yes, totally agree. It helps. I clutter the brain. After a while, you just got to get out of your head, and if
Yes.
seeing an item or remembering a memory gets you back to closer to where you want to be, you've accelerated the healing or the response. Seems that Hannah says, haven't seen you. Great to see you. Thank you, Hannah. Seems it's about respecting yourself enough to keep what resonates with you. Respect who you
Yeah,
are now. Yeah, everything is you. The game
I
is
like
between
that.
you and yourself. You set the rules. You pass the sentences. Kindness and generosity are stands out to agree. You can't beat that for a legacy. You love to say, "Oh, he was so kind and
Absolutely.
considerate." My ex complained about only having a small part of the closet, the bathroom, the kitchen. I always learned a yes will always get you another yes down the road, and a no will always get you another no. So give more yeses than nos, and don't worry. I always laugh with my mentors because they're caught up in the lifestyle, and I joke, unless I have to go to an event or a business meeting, I'll be in tank tops and shorts. Comfort
I
goes
love that.
away. Maria Kondo says, if it doesn't bring you joy or use it, get rid of it. I usually
Get rid of.
feels like 30 days actually. Value is up to you to define a story that's boring. Two big gurus on LinkedIn can still be shaped into benefits. Know your heart and direct it to who needs to see it. Well, if anything, it shows the universal list of legacy is so huge that no one
Yes.
thing should mean that much as a thing. I think that's the most important thing, whether it's minimalism or materialism, everything's still just a thing.
The
I'll tell you a
thing.
quick story. We
So
don't have
that's why I think it comes down to this, the whole conversation. Show your heart.
Why not? It's there. It's available. Why not? Why keep it the best hidden secret here? Letting go to help you grow. If it's lost in the closet, allow it to give. Sure, there's somebody who needs a jacket somewhere. Thank you, Don. Hugs to you. Rita says, Don, every day you give yourself to the show and help others, your legacy is strong. Well, thank you, Rita. And Rita's such a
Yes.
lovely lady. You should get to know her because some people are just transparent in the value they bring and the legacy they have. And why not engage somebody to plug into that pipeline of legacy and memories? Because the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Paul says, I've never been a material. I've focused on, I've been everywhere. I've been up, I've been down, and that's the beauty of living is having full experiences,
Yes.
right? When you're just, hey, I'm at the top, I'm going to lock it down, I'm going to stay here. Well, how much enjoyment are you going to be in lockdown? And they say it's
Not.
only at the top. It is. When you get there, you want other people helped you get there to be there with you. So they
Yeah.
can get there, you can celebrate and then start another climb. Let me see, something old must go to let a lot new in. And there's that saying, what
I
was
love that.
always new again, right? If you save
Yes.
them long enough, it'll come back in style. Love that so much. People are more important than anything else. They're irreplaceable.
Yes.
If you took every item I have, I can get new ones tomorrow. But if you touch
Yes.
a person I love, it'll be the end of the world. And that's how I look at it. Your light is bright. See, Leslie,
Oh,
from
thank you, Rita.
I miss being a co-host. Maybe Lindsay, I can do talking about being. Paul, you got an open invitation anytime you want. I'm happy to have you. So Maria says, if it doesn't bring, okay, we covered that. Boy, this never ends. Gosh. Steven says, Melissa, Leslie, my dad never worked a professional job, but he had an impact on my professional image. For work, I now wear the
Oh,
he used to wear when he was younger. And that is so cool.
I love that.
My wife has these sweaters my mother wore, and it still has the perfume scent on them. So
Yes.
not only do you wear them, you actually feel them in a sense. Rashida says, well, it comes down to sharing is caring. Uh,
Yeah.
Tamara's here. I know Tamara's an author of children's books. Yes, people are more important than anything else. Uh, this has been such a wonderful discussion. It's been such a great word. It's taken everybody down memory lane together.
I love it.
It started the weekend off right. And maybe that's how you launch your day. Maybe part of
Yes.
meditation is you pick out, I know like Harvey Tuck always has a prop when he comes on the show. Maybe you pick out one or two things and focus on it for a little bit and bring back that memory. And what would you lose? A few minutes of something else down in the day that probably wouldn't serve you as well. And maybe at night before you go to bed, embrace that
Yes.
again. I think those are
Definitely.
important. So, with that said, uh, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I want to give Leslie last words as to how she feels about how she is now from where she started when we started, and whatever else Leslie can add.
Well, thank you. And thank again everyone who's been commenting. I just look forward to the continuing conversation. And I think I'm convinced like every word we've all like uttered today, written or spoken, it's really like it's our heart more than the things. So if a thing brings out that feeling of heart, great. If I enjoy using the china that other people think I should save in the cabinet, I'm enjoying it. I'm experiencing. I'm always remembering the stories and the history, but I'm bringing it forward to today. And then it's the lessons and the wisdom and the kindness is what we can all share with everyone, because that's where we started, with the story of the person who I am now still friends with and in touch with, telling me about something I did that completely changed the direction of his life. Uh, if nothing else I've done, I've done it. That's enough legacy for me. But yet it's not. We keep on creating more, and that's our impact, the impact on an individual, and maybe many individuals if we're lucky.
Yeah, and it's a learning process. And the nice thing about having a daily show is you can learn a little bit every day and not have to overwhelm yourself. And you can share a little bit every day. And when you start practicing those muscles that, could get stronger for you and other people around by using what you have now. Everybody's like, when I get this, I'll be able to do that.
Yes,
And I'm like, hey, start where you are with who you are with what you got
exactly.
and add to it and take your time enjoying the ride, because if you start sooner, you've got more time than you would have had if you waited. And there's another saying
Exactly.
that says start before you're ready, because you can catch up.
Exactly.
So anyways, with that, hopefully this has just created a flood of thought and provoke some more memories, ideas. And sometimes you're not that far off. All you need is an adjustment here, a redirection of time, thought, or relationships there. Constantly take inventory of what's most valuable to you, which is your dreams. That should be the
Yes.
legacies you're shooting for, not the stuff you've already gotten. That's already in the book. You don't have to spend time with that. So hopefully we're encouraging, inspiring. Please come back tomorrow. We've got Sarah Dawkins. She is just unbelievable. For the people who haven't seen Sarah, she's been here every other Sunday for about 5 months. And Monday we've got Dr. Marilyn Scott with Dr. Joanne White, and that'll be a great show. And then Tuesday we come back with Andrea. Wednesday is Rita. Thursday is Kelly. Friday is Christy and
Love it.
Harvey. And it just keeps getting better. And it's all because of
Yes.
you. So thank you for the legacy you're helping us create. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk again in 23 hours. Bye.